we're going to take our industrial base back to close to post-World War II. So you're going to make boats, you're going to fix boats. Like we're getting back to the basics, which is, if rare earths was the catalyst to get us going in the right direction and stop being a service economy, it's great. So it's tough now, but I think long term it's going to be great for the whole continent. Demand for these materials is, it's not going away. It's just going to continue to be demand pull driven. We're in the first inning of a 9-inning game that's probably going to go to a few extra innings, right? So it'll be fun.
Don't forget to sign up for a free portfolio review with one of our endorsed investment partners at wealthion.com/free. With markets hitting all-time highs, now is a great time to stress test your strategy and be prepared for what comes next.
Greetings and welcome to our Wealthion show. My name's Trey Reik, and I'm here today with Dave Wargo, head of investment banking at our partners in Toronto, SCP Resource Finance. We're very excited about our silver conference, which is going to kick off tonight with a welcome dinner, and then tomorrow with a full day slate, started with Eric Sprott, etc. And I think the cream of the crop of the silver industry, Pan American, First Majestic, another 12 producers, and Maria Smirnova from Sprott, Connor O'Brien. So it's an action-packed slate. And if folks aren't going to be here in person tomorrow, please sign up for the virtual option for this Saturday, beginning at 8 and ending at 7, which I will be emceeing. So Dave, thanks for coming. The topic today, of course, is not silver. We thought, given developments in the area of late, we revisit the area of rare earths.
Yeah,
so,
lots going on there.
Yep. And I don't want to do too much geological history for everybody, but could you just give us a brief overview? When people read in the paper rare earths, and now it's even expanded to critical minerals, there's 17 rare earths. I'm sure there's another 20 critical minerals, and they get lumped together. Are there a few that are much more important than the others that this whole game is really about?
Yeah, there's two. And those are the ones that are mainly situated in Southeast Asia. And they're the only two elements that, more or less balance the trade negotiations, and that's dysprosium and terbium. And they're referred to as the heavy rare earths. And they are all over the world, but in economic quantities, you really find them in that whole Southeast Asian corridor from southern China, Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam, and I'm sure they have some in Thailand as well. And it's just very weathered. It's ionic, beautiful metallurgical properties. Truly the champagne of heavy rare earths, and the Chinese have a lock on it. And so that's where you find them. But you can find them other places. A lot of them you can find them in other ionic clay deposits around the world, and you can get a lot of Dy and Tb out of monazite, which is the radioactive or high uranium thorium ores that you'd find on heavy mineral sands cuts, and that's what Mark Chalmers at EFR is perfecting right now. So he's gone that route, but it's mainly in Southeast Asia is where you find the two most important rares.
I was going to ask that question. So since you mentioned it, can you talk a little bit about the difference between ionic clays and monazite?
Well, ionic clay, it's Mother Nature's done all the work. It's fully oxidized for the most part, it should be. And so the rare earth is loosely associated with the clays. You don't need to drill, you don't need to blast, you don't need to crush. You just free dig, and you're washing the clay with ammonium sulfate, pH of 4, or magnesium sulfate, pH of 4, which is almost benign. And you're basically getting 70% of your payability within the first 5 minutes. That's the true rare earth deposit. And then a monazite deposit comes in hard rock, and as well as heavy mineral sands, and monazite is loaded with uranium and thorium, so it's deemed a class 7. When you ship it, it's class 7, which means it's very highly regulated because of the radionuclides. Iluka in Australia can separate them, and they're ramping up. And EFR in Blanding, Utah, which has just knocked it out of the park. Like, I can't stress how well Mark Chalmers has done at that company. And you look at the share price, he's doing it down in Blanding, Utah. And then, of course, the Chinese can do it, and the Russians can do it. But, for the Western world, it's Australia and it's EFR, and it's class 7 shipment. So they're the only two that right now can handle the radionuclides. And maybe, probably, it's now Solvay, which is the old Rhone Blanc, which is the old Rhodia, and one of the pioneers, French company. They would also be able to do this at La Rochelle, but it's a bit different when you're doing it, in a beautiful place on the Atlantic Ocean, right? So the main two places are they can solve that issue are Blanding and Iluka in Australia, but they're highly radioactive. But with that, you get a beautiful mix of heavy and light rare earths. It's very unique, and you can get high grades of like dysprosium and terbium and whatnot. So, and I think Mark is he's going to put a heavy mineral, it's fully licensed. He's going to put a heavy mineral sands deposit into production in Australia, and he's going to get I don't know what the amount of DY, but the DY is one of the primary minerals that's going to come off of that production. So it's starting. So it's good.
So one of the things that we hear all the time is that there are these types of ionic clays and monazite elsewhere in the world, but they're not large enough to mine profitably. And then we also hear how easy it is. You basically just wash the stuff out. So this is just a personal question. I've always wondered if you find a little bit of this stuff, it seems to be so easy to process that the barriers to entry would be low, but they're high.
Well, yeah, you can strip a rare earth out of a clay hosted deposit. Then you have to take that. Then you strip it out in ammonium sulfate, right? So the rare earth attaches to the sulfate, and then you will precipitate that out with a hydroxide or carbonate. So you get something called, you'll hear in the industry, MREC. So just your mixed rare earth carbonate. Let's just call it that. You get a mixed rare earth carbonate, and then you have to take that, and it's about 50% rare earth concentrate now. And then you have to do solvent extraction and separate out each individual rare earth. And you think about it, the closer any two elements are on a periodic table, the harder it is to separate, because they're very similar. So there's a lot of horsepower that goes into the downstream processing of the stuff, and that's where the West will catch up. We invented it over here. The Chinese perfected it over there, and they've just run away with it. So that's where the value add is on the first part of the downstream, and then you'll take those molecules, you alloy them, and then you'll make magnetic materials out of them, right? So it's pretty complex, idiosyncratic process. It's not for everybody.
My other question, since there are these 17 that everybody focuses on, or that the press focuses on, the lighter rare earths, if you have a lot of them, what do you do with them? It just depresses.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, in a light rare earth deposit, 75% of your payability rule of thumb would be cerium and lanthanum. And if you're running your process off of 20% of the overall concentration, whatever that ratio is, like 3 point, whatever to 1. So you're getting 1, you're producing 3 no matter what. So there's only so many applications for cerium. There's only so many applications for lanthanum, and there's always an oversupply because you're running your whole process on the lights for NdPr and on the heavies for DyTb. So everything else that comes along with those, you're going to create a lot of extra molecules, and the markets are not big enough to absorb those molecules. So the price is not even worth talking about, right?
Interesting.
You're literally, the whole rare space is based on the magnets, really, for the most part. And there's lots of applications for cerium and lanthanum, but not enough to take up the extra molecules that are being produced as NdPr. I think it's growing at a compounded annual rate of like 14%, right?
Mhm.
So you're not going to increase demand for cerium and lanthanum at the same pace. So they're not worth anything in my books, right? But everybody puts an economic value on it, and then they'll put it in their presentation. Look at this, what my deposit's worth, and you have to discount it to zero. Basically, is that's my rule of thumb, anyway.
Now, even though rare earths have been on the front page for the past year or two, prices haven't sort of reflected that urgency, have they?
Well, no, because every time the West starts to bang the drum on rare earths and increasing production, and start developing projects, the Chinese just open the faucet and they flood the market. And so a perfect example, I think I said this last time around, but the perfect example of that would be like, EFR went into the market. They're buying monazite for $500. They started cracking it, separating, producing magnet grade NdPr. And the next time they went into the market, the price of the concentrate was 20 times higher, and it didn't make economic sense for them to separate it, because the Chinese basically said, we'll pay you $10,000 a ton. And, money talks. Always tie goes to the money. So that was bent towards the east, and Mark just kind of, went out on a buying spree to get primary deposits for his own feed, right? And he's done a hell of a job doing that. So
This October, Wealthion's putting the spotlight on silver with expert interviews, deep analysis, and a special in-depth report from our partners at SCP Resource Finance. To receive this report and other exclusive benefits, you can sign up to become an accredited investor with Wealthion at wealthion.com/accredited, or by finding the link in the description below. Speaking of silver, Wealthion will be on the ground in Toronto for the SCP Resource Finance Second Global Silver Conference, happening on Thursday, October 23rd. Legendary investor Eric Sprott headlines the event alongside 15 silver mining companies presenting their top projects. It's a must-attend for anyone serious about investing in silver. Tickets, both in person and virtual, are now available. Find out more in the description below.
For viewers, I think it's important to recognize that this is a very
absolutely.
complicated.
It is very complicated, and the Chinese have developed their industry really, I want to say, for 40 years, right? Like in earnest. They took over the industry 97, 98 and put Mountain Pass, which is the deposit that the Pentagon just took a stake into. They put that out of business, and then they focused on the industry as a whole to become the rare earth leader, and they've monopolized the global market, and they really have monopolized the downstream. And what's amazing is we've brought the technology into the country in 2003, 4, 5, around there. So and they've just taken that technology and run with it. So 20 years, they own the house.
Moving to the front pages recently.
Yep.
As I recall the sequence of the past year, back in April, China put some controls on rare earth exports, and it's all as a preamble to trade negotiations. And then what did we do? We extended the truce for 90 days. We did something that caused them to open things up, and I thought it was sort of solved. And then 2 weeks ago, what happened?
Well, the way the trade agreement, they settled the trade agreement because I think the U.S. realized that they were really in a bind. You had like Ford shutting down production lines because you can't make electric cars without these rare earth magnets. And so they obviously settled a an extension of a trade agreement. It wasn't settled completely, but they got on the same page, and that allowed for the rare earth magnets to be starting to re-export out of China into the West. And then what the Chinese state has done is they're giving export licenses, but you can only sell to certain industries. So the car industry, I think, is okay, although it's never as as advertised. Like if you're allowed to export one magnet, you actually had a license to. They're only exporting like half a magnet, right?
Mhm.
So they're not really sticking up to their end of the bargain, and that's to squeeze the Americans because they obviously want the tech, like AI tech and those NVIDIA chips and other things. So they're going to use this as real leverage. And so 2 weeks ago, there was a rumor that they were just going to cut off rare earth supply to like basically the West as a whole. And the whole kind of Western world woke up and was, dead set against it. I think the Chinese state kind of overplayed its hand because it's, truly has a monopoly here. And then, as a function of that, and this was always in process, but as a function of that, you saw Trump in Australia doing the big agreement with, not in Australia, but he did the big agreement with the Australians on critical minerals and rare earths, because they've got a lot of critical minerals and rare earths. You got Alcoa is going in for I think gallium. In Australia, they're going to get subsidies from the U.S. government to get all this stuff going. So I think you've seen, and I've seen in my own work that like it's really ramped up the interest in the space, and it's also ramped up a lot of the stuff we've been working on. You can tell that it's become way more. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like when it becomes more urgent. The sense of urgency has gone through the roof, right?
Sure.
So it's truly game on. DYTB were the only two that balanced the trade negotiations on the last settlement, and it looks like they've got a lot of leverage here. So they're going to leverage that position to get something out of the Americans, is my guess, right? And I don't think that they're going to cut us off. They may have certain industries that you can't sell to, like the Americans, or sorry, not just the American, the West have things they can't sell to the certain Chinese companies. And so it's going to be a tit for tat thing for a little while. And so I think it's something we have to get used to until the Americans and the West as a whole, because the Europeans are pushing forward too, become basic in our own supply chain and rare earths. And that's going to take billions of dollars of capital investment. It's going to take years of training young people to be able to do the jobs. And but we'll get there. And I it's almost get the feeling it's almost like it's like a War Measures Act, like it's like this is to the point where it's elevated to the highest people of government. Like Trump talks about it. So it's game time, and it's about time too, because I'm not saying we're ahead of the curve at SCP, but like we were ahead of the curve, and we were we've been going down to the States for a long time now, saying this problem is going to be here, and sure enough, it shows up. And so I've had the luxury of seeing the process, and I can tell you it's certainly game on now, and it's the best thing that could ever happen to the West, because it's not just rare earths. Like, you talk about all the other critical minerals. There's lots of other critical minerals that we, like tungsten, graphite, the Chinese control those, germanium, gallium, they control those. And so every critical mineral that's on that list is something that's very important to the U.S. government, like antimony. That's why the deposit out in Idaho, which is run by Perpetua, which was the old Midas, got IRA money because they had not only is it a beautiful gold deposit, they have this great side stream of antimony, right? So that's another critical mineral. So anything that the Chinese have basically wrapped their arms around, and they did it with purpose. They don't wake up and just decide to do something on the day. It's a state planned economy, right? So this is by design. So that critical mineral list that changes all the time. It's all the minerals that the basically the Chinese state more or less monopolizes, right? So it's good for our business, I can tell you that, and it's going to be fun to see the U.S. reindustrialize, right? Because it's going to be great for Canada. It's great for the U.S. It'll be great for Mexico. The whole North American continent's going to boom because of what's happening in the States. And, will they go back to a post-World War II industrial base? Not 100%, but I can tell you this, the people I've spoken to, uh, you know, they told me get that office in New York open very soon, Dave, because we're going to take our industrial base back to close to post-World War II. So you're going to make boats, you're going to fix boats. Like we're getting back to the basics, which is, if rare earths was the catalyst to get us going in the right direction and stop being a service economy, it's great. So it's tough now, but I think long term it's going to be great for the whole continent. So
I just want to emphasize that to our viewers that throughout this whole trade fight with China that's been accelerating for 2 or 3 years, this is really the first time that we've seen Western nations show a combined resolve this quickly. Don't you think?
100%. 100%. Like it was unanimous, right? It was bipartisan. It was just like, no. Right?
Within a week.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because you think about it, like BMW, Volkswagen, everybody, and we are allies. I think on the surface we bicker, but behind the scenes, it's like, there is an organized medium that's that's really tightly bound together, which is important, especially when you're dealing with a state controlled economy as your competitor, because that's makes it very difficult for the entrepreneur and the individual, right? So you have to have state backing. And Pentagon taking 15% explicitly. It's not too often that the U.S. government is explicit about what they're investing in, and I think that this time around they're explicit because they want the world to know that it's different this time, and it is different this time, which is good. So they're explicit about their intention, and it's the signal to the rest of the world. Like it's like, you know what, we're getting back to work, and look out, right? I love it. It's awesome. So
now, importantly, introducing the government to this whole thing obviously is going to introduce a level of inefficiency. So over the last couple of weeks, as I listened to the morning call and some of these random investments or letters of interest and that type of thing, tape, you and Justin and Brandon and the team have your own opinions about all these mines already formed, and some of them you're not too confident, may be that profitable. So doesn't this sort of mess the whole thing up too with all this government, or is it just rising tide?
Well, it's a rising tide. Plus the State Department or the Pentagon, they've guaranteed prices for not Molly, well, it was Molycorp, it's now MP Materials, whatever. Mm-hmm. Call it Molycorp, its real name, and they've guaranteed them $110. I think it's a kilogram for every pound, every kilogram of NdPr they produce. And so that, in mining, there's minerals everywhere. It just comes down to economic quantities, and economic quantities is a function of price, right? So as the price goes up, if gold goes to $50,000 an ounce, you'll probably see people filtering Lake Ontario, right? Because you could probably make a penny off of it. So as the price rises, you're going to get what was a non-economic deposit, getting financed, and so what's going to happen is you're going to have a flood of capital. It's already happening. A flood of capital come into the space. The good ones will get financed, and the bad ones will get financed, and the marginal ones will get financed, because all boats float in a rising tide, whatever the expression is. Mm-hmm. And when you get enough capacity into the system, enough molecules coming into the world again, the price will come down. And then the marginal ones will go out of business, right? But I think that in this case,
did the government pick the right company with MP?
Well, I mean, it's the historic rare earth deposit, I mean, I would have chosen another one, but I also understand why they did it, because California, it's in California, and it's America for Americans, and I don't have a problem with that. And it's still a good deposit, right? But you're getting lower into it, so you're going to get higher radionuclides, which means you're going to have a problem with uranium and thorium eventually if they don't already. I think they do. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But there's lots of other deposits in the world that would complement Mountain Pass in a significant way. So look, it's not the first one I would have chosen, but I'm not in the room, and there's lots of other reasons behind why they do things, and it's just not money. What I think the most important thing that came out of that, it's like, we're serious about this finally, right? And this space has just been decimated, and the Chinese have just controlled it, and it's going to take government support across the Western world, and it's going to take subsidies, right? It's like, I don't know. I look at it as it's the New Deal 2.0, right? So the way I see the next decade going is there's going to be a tremendous amount of government subsidies across the West. Quasi, I don't want to use the word nationalization, but when the government comes in, it's kind of quasi nationalization. And then I think once it gets off its back, and once the system's running again at a good clip, then I guarantee the American government will sell down its stake, and it'll become a public company in the capital markets on the New York Stock Exchange, right? So no problem with what they're doing, and because it has to be done. We let everything go, right? And we became banquet waiters, and look at my sleeve tattoo. So it's time to put a wrench in our hand and get back to work.
Yield curve country.
Yeah.
So on the MP deal, normally when the government picks a company like that to back, there would be losers. But is it fair to say that the MP deal really put a floor under everybody?
Yeah, I mean, if the government's going to guarantee you $110, that becomes the floor price. Because even if I'm the Chinese, I'd be like, perfect. You're going to charge 110. I'll charge 110 too, right? So because they're going to come into the market anyway, so take extra rent. So that's basically the floor price for the industry, right? So and that'll stimulate lots of investment, right?
If you're looking for a simple, secure way to invest and own physical gold and silver, visit our sister company, Hard Assets Alliance, at hardassetsalliance.com. That's hardassetsalliance.com.
Do you have an opinion on 110 as a price, or does it not really matter? It's just they pick one and that's it.
Yeah, 110 would be the price where it just tells me that their cash cost is $55. Because rule of thumb in the mining space is your C1 cash cost times it by 2 typically gives you a 15% internal rate of return. And I think that's there's not a lot of magic behind it. I think that's the magic. So, yeah.
So I think another thing for viewers who are looking at the space, we've already talked about the fact that even though there's a lot of pressure on supply, prices don't always cooperate. Another variable that I would like to get your perspective on, if you're going to invest in sort of the rarer space, what would you say would be an appropriate time horizon? In other words, these aren't things you want to trade, correct?
No, don't trade them because the price is going to go up and down. I think the way I would invest in the space is have a long-term perspective, because the space, is volatile, and you will hit the asymptote of pain. Believe me. Every space does. All these things round trip, right? So I would look at long life assets that have great metallurgy. And so on the ionic clays, they're the best in the world. That's the champagne of rare earth. And there's a company that we've championed at SCP. Great management team, great board, great everything. They've got a beautiful ionic clay deposit in Brazil. The company's called Meteoric. I'm not making a recommendation to buy it, but if you want to understand what a tier 1 ionic clay rare earth deposit looks like, look no further than Meteoric, and that's MEI on the ASX. And they're going to be at final investment decision by the end of Q1 next year. So 5 months from now. And we've been championing this story for 3 years now. And the guys who got their hands on this project did a great job. And we've helped build the company, and it's tier 1. It's I think it's the best ionic clay deposit in the world. I think it's better than anything in China too. So
Has
on the
Meteor
light side, sorry.
has Meteor always been in rare earths, or were they mining something else?
No, I mean it started out as a gold company, typical
That's what
junior
I
mining.
thought.
They started a gold company, and then the person who ran the gold company befriended the vendor of the rare earth asset. I think his nephew or something like that helped train him as a geologist, and built up a lot of goodwill over time. He got a phone call. What do I do with this? And then I met him about 6 weeks after. I know what you're going to do with this. Like, it's game on, man. It's like, it truly is it's a world-class deposit. It's like the Sudbury Basin is to nickel. It's like, Friedland's Ivanhoe to copper in the Congo. It's that type of deposit, right? And
But for viewers that look it up, I didn't want them to be confused as I did that it shows up as a gold company, but it's not.
No, it shouldn't show up as a gold company. You go on their webpage, it'll come up as a rare earth company.
Okay,
That's
so
for
now
sure.
it's
Yeah.
100% rare earth.
Oh, it's been 100% rare earths for 3 years. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They sold off the gold property for like $25 million, and yeah, no, it's top of class. It really is. They've got a very competent board. Stuart Gale's the CEO. He's more than capable. He's very good. He's doing an excellent job, and they've got the goodies, right? They really have the goodies. And if you got the goodies, at some point, the market will wake up to it. The sun will shine on you, and your market cap will quadruple. I think it's worth like $5 to $10 billion as it sits today. It's 1.5 billion tons.
Yeah, talk about the deposit. What's there?
Well, it's the average resource grade of the deposit is like 2,700 ppm, which is high grade for ionic. When I met with the company, they had about 400 million tons. And since then, they've extrapolated that into 1.5 billion tons at 2,700 ppm. And most importantly, it's laterally ionic and vertically down as you go down the horizon of weathering. It's ionic. They haven't really hit the threshold of where it's not. It'll probably be ionic as you stop being ionic as you get close to the bedrock, right? Because it makes sense. It's not weathered. But you're looking at probably a deposit, if you really think about it, probably goes to 2 to 3 billion tons, and you'll be mining that for 2 to 3 to 4, 500 years. Like it's your kids will be mining it. And I think the demand for this stuff is going to go through the roof because all the magnets in these data centers that will drive the electric motors, all the electric motors in the electric cars, all the electric motors in the robots that everybody's talking about now, right? It's all neodymium iron boron magnets. So this market's just going to boom. And that's why I think even if all of these other rare earth deposits, even if they're marginal at today's price, I think the demand pull, it's going to be so elastic. If you can give somebody a molecule and they know that I can actually spec this into my consumer product and not worry about having to change suppliers, not worrying about not being able to get the molecule. It's like the Chinese just don't own it. You'll see a very elastic response. And I think you're going to see applications proliferate as we electrify the economy, and that's not going to change because the genie's out of the bottle, and the Chinese aren't stopping, so that means we can't stop, right? So I think it's going to be a great space to be in for the next 10, 20 years. And
going back to MP, we were talking about the drilling. How is drilling in clays different from drilling hard rock for gold? Is it cheaper to drill? Same amount of money?
Yeah, like a clay, you get an auger drill, which is just, you're pulling the earth up. You're taking 1 meter, put 1 meter samples in a bucket, and you can do that with your hands, right? A bastnaesite deposit like Mountain Pass, which we'll use as a comparison, that is hard rock bastnaesite. No uranium and thorium in the weathered part, but you got to drill it out through hard rock. You got to drill it, blast it, crush it, float it, leach it, precipitate it, and then put it through a solvent extraction line. So your working capital there would be a lot longer. And then a ionic clay deposit, you dig up, you wash, you precipitate, then you put it into your SX line. So your working capital is smaller. So you're used to, now that we have real interest rates, that, that shortening your working capital or your work in process is very important. It's money. So it's just everything about a clay deposit is just, it's 10 times better. It's like finding oil in Saudi Arabia. It just flows to the surface, right? That's what I'd compare ionic clay deposit to. And
Are ionic clay
capital
deposits,
intensities, capital intensity.
Sorry to interrupt. Are
Yep.
ionic clay deposits at depth, near the surface, all over the map?
Oh, near the surface. It's weathered from the surface, right? Yeah, it's just a weathered, like it could have been an old monazite deposit. It could have been an old basanesite deposit, and it's just weathered, right? And so if you think where you get these ionic clay deposits, like lots of water, lots of heat. So all of Southeast Asia, I don't know if you've been there before in the summer, it is hot as hell. And those are the things that drive oxidation, water, oxygen, and heat. And when you go to, so that's where you're finding all these ionic clays. So, and then you go across the ocean and around across the Pacific, and you hit Brazil, and you're in the Amazon basin. It's, hot as hell in the summertime there, with a tremendous amount of water and a tremendous amount of rainfall. And those are the perfect conditions to oxidize a deposit over a very long time, like millions of years. But that's what you get. You get this unconsolidated Mother Nature processed deposit. And you don't have, the capital is 40 cents on the dollar to a conventional. Like if Mountain Pass, they just discovered it, an equal amount of rare earth, like meteoric, we'll use an example. So meteoric, if they were to build the same amount of rare earth capacity as Mountain Pass, okay, the capital intensity would be 40 cents on the dollar. Like that's real savings, right? And the world's broke. So I know where I would be looking. It's just a no-brainer.
And remind me, where is the meteoric deposit?
It's in Brazil. You fly into Sao Paulo. You drive, I think, northeast for 3 hours, and it's in a caldera. I should know the state. It slips my mind now. I've been there a few times, but it's in an old volcano, right? So it's contained. There's one stream out of the volcano, and so you've had the perfect containment of the mineralization to just be weathered over millions of years, right? And this thing's big. It's like 35 kilometers by 30 kilometers. Like it's
Have you been there?
Yeah, a number of times, and it'd be like having a deposit in Sudbury, getting on the 401 and hitting the 400, and like it's just even better than being in Sudbury, because Sudbury goes down to like two-way highways. This is a three-way highway all the way. Then you turn left, you get a espresso, because it's an old Italian settled community back in the late 1800s. And it's simply beautiful. It's first world, infrastructure's there. Alcoa operated there for a bauxite for a number of years, so they understand industrial processes. And the vendor that we did the deal with, very sophisticated ceramic engineer from Rutgers, like he knows his stuff. Pleasure to deal with too. And so yeah, it's just been a great experience, and it's kind of nice to be associated with like a group of people that have put together a world-class asset, right? It's kind of fun, because it doesn't happen often, right? This only happens to Friedland. He seems to find them when he wakes up out of bed. But like, when you see something like this, it's quite special, right? So
and environmentally, the rare earth is less challenging, I think, for the environment. Is that fair? Than
the ionic
big
clay
cyanide tanks and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with cyanide. The Germans ruined cyanide during World War II. Like breaks down with UV light, but no, it's a pretty benign process, except for the solvent extraction, which uses some pretty crazy chemicals and kerosene and. But the upfront, ammonium sulfate, it's a common off-the-shelf fertilizer. Now there's residual ammonia, which could be a problem. So that's why some people use magnesium sulfate, but because ammonia is a fertilizer, right? And it stimulates algae growth, which, takes the oxygen out of the water when it gets into the water system. But in this part of Brazil, they have lots of eucalyptus farms, and, I would imagine the companies looking at this with the local government, but like taking the spent rare earth strip clay that, because when you take a rare earth molecule out of clay, the rare earth attaches to the sulfite and the ammonia attaches to the clay. It just replaces, right? And so, you can almost say, okay, you put the ammonia loaded clay back in the ground and you plant a eucalyptus tree, because there's lots of eucalyptus farms in the neighborhood, and that will be consumed by the tree. So you could actually have, it's also, yeah, I guess it's one of the most, if anybody cares, it's one of the most green projects in the world, because 98% of the energy inputs are all green in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And you could grow a tree with your, you don't have to pile up tailings. You just plant a tree and let it grow, and then make some money off that too, right? So
as far as the world goes, Brazil's a pretty stable, mining friendly jurisdiction.
Yeah, I mean, Vale, they're huge. They're one of the biggest iron ore producers in the world. They've tons of gold mines down there. Yeah, it's and they've got what else? They get niobium. They control the world's niobium supply. Yeah, it's a mining based economy as well. Amongst other, agriculture is big too, but they have lots of mines. It's not foreign to them.
So is it too late to invest in rare earths? You mentioned you think this is going to go on for 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, well, no, it's not. I think that the genie's out of the bottle. The space is going to continually grow. I think as Western deposits come into the world, the market will expand, and then you'll probably even get the Chinese fighting over market share too, right? So, which is what the West wants, and then the consumer, like it's always about the consumer. We want to get the economy going, so you need competition. You need lots of sources, and yeah. So I think just over time, 10 years probably it'll take to get this thing going up to. Now, for military applications, I think that the U.S. will be a lot faster than 10 years. But for overall, the whole growth of the industry will probably take 10 years. And it's a great investment, because this stuff goes into the new economy. And that's what scared everybody when China was like really threatening to cut it off. Like, it's like they control the new economy through these magnets. It's actually profound if you think about it, right? And that was all by design. Like, they should be teaching a course at Harvard on how to monopolize a market globally, because they have and the barriers to entry in areas over, I'm not going to go into it, but we had an experience over in Southeast Asia where we thought we had this deal, and let's just say it didn't work out, and it's almost like a spy novel, and
there were no helicopters, were there?
No helicopters, but the deposit was real, the plant was real, and the plant doesn't exist anymore. So that tells you that we are onto something, and it tells you how critical this is to the trade negotiations. Like, it's really critical, and so that's why I know it's how critical it is to trade negotiations. So it's just a space that's going to have a constant bid. It's going to be in the media all the time. That's not what it's about, but it'll be in the vernacular all the time. Governments are going to subsidize the space. The Americans are leading that, but everybody's going to do. Canada will do that. Mexico will do that. And you know what? Look at, EFR. I think the last time we did the interview, like, EFR was like $7. It hit 30.
It's
right?
30.
And it's going to be 60. It's going to be 90. Like, it's not like there's no work done behind that, but like, as Mark builds his business out, he's got the first mover advantage, and he'll get support from the USG. He already is, but I think he'll get economic support, is my guess. I don't know that, but I would imagine. And he's going to build like a mini, not a mini, they're going to build a real US industrial. I think that company probably one day will be 20 to 40 to $50 billion market cap, or it'll get taken over by a company, become part of a conglomerate. Because I think we're going to go back to a time where, the US will have these big institutions like Union Carbide, Dow Chemical, DuPont. It's all been merged into one. It doesn't do anybody good. They sell down these divisions. And so I think you're seeing, what was old is now new, and we're going to get into these fully integrated companies, because the Chinese have done that. And if you can't beat them as individuals, right? And so, in China, if you want their copper, their rare earths, their nickel, their alumina, buy my car, buy my cell phone, buy my, pot, buy my pen. You're not buying my concentrate. They want to add the value along the way. And we should do that as well. And then we're going to add the value along the way. That's the way it's going. So it's perfect.
Unlike gold and silver, you
Yep.
can't, as an investor, buy the metal. There's no, ETFs that hold this type of stuff, right? So,
No.
how do investors take advantage? And how big's the market? How many companies are there? And can you give us, not recommendations, but examples from SCP's
Yeah.
perspective?
Well, I
You've
mean,
given
there's
us
lots
two.
of companies. Like everybody's a rare earth company now. The indexes are full of them.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at the space very carefully. There's some established producers like Linus and Molycorp in Australia and the US. And then you have a number of juniors that are developing these projects. Mark's not a junior. He's a mid-tier now based on his market cap. But like, if you want to be safe, you go, I would invest in, if I were going to invest in the space, Meteoric, simply because it's first class. It's the biggest, best deposit in the space in the world. And then I would stick with EFR because Mark moved on this space 4 years ago. He's developed his company. It's I don't know. It's over. I don't know how many billions it is, but it's a lot. And he's got the right people in the company. He's connected to the right people. The USG will support him. And he's ahead of the curve, right? And you know how it works. Like the first mover. I'm not saying it's like Microsoft, but like Microsoft moved first over Apple. Apple was better, and they took the whole market, right? So Mark will get into the market before a lot of these other companies. MEI will too, because they're not too far away. And once you spec your product into the downstream, you don't change, right? So I would go from a development perspective to invest in a world-class asset that will see daylight and will be in production for the next 100 years. I'd buy MEI, and then I would go with the known that's really got the momentum and has the human capital, because the human capital in this space it's the biggest problem. It's not just this space, it's the West as a whole. We gave all our industry away, so why become an engineer, right? So he's got the team, he's got the molecules now because he's started consolidating a lot of heavy mineral sands deposits. And I think he's got like $1.2 billion on the balance sheet now. Like, this is, he raised a $700 million convert. It was only supposed to be like 600. They upsized it. And the rate on that convert's 0.75% unsecured. And the conversion price was, I think, $30. And like 4 weeks later, the stock's at like 28, almost through the conversion price, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means he's got real institutions backing him. And I think you got to own it if you want to be in the space. And so those are the two. Those are the two I like the best. And
can you give us just 2 minutes on Energy Fuels and how it's unique?
Well, Energy Fuels is it's a unique company in the sense that it was a uranium and vanadium company. So they've got one of the only uranium mills in the U.S. There's lots of ISL in Wyoming, but conventional ores for the whole Four Corners area, so kind of hub and spoke. And then Mark went into rare earths. And so he's got the best of both worlds, because if you think about like the grid, the US is going to double its grid for AI. So that means Canada's going to have to double its grid, and means Mexico's going to have to double its grid, because you have to keep up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to drive nuclear fuel demand, which will drive primary supply U3O8 pounds into the whole fuel cycle. So he's got uranium, he's mining a beautiful deposit at Pinyon Plains. He's like got grades of 70%. Now it's not a long life asset, but that's what he's mining right now. So you get the best of both worlds. He's going to produce lots of uranium, which is, I think it's $80 a pound, probably going through the old highs, which were about 160. Everything's going through its old highs, like silver's through its old highs, gold's through its old highs. So the hard asset trades on. Uranium will go through its old highs. So he's got uranium, and he's further ahead than anybody in the U.S. ex Molycorp or MP Materials on processing rare earths at monazites. Well, he's the only one that can process it at monazites. So huge barriers to entry. because he's got the license to handle the radionuclides. So you've got a great rare earth business plan going forward, and he will go to alloys for sure. And he'll probably start tinkering with magnets at some point. And then he's got the uranium. So it's a, two-pronged beast that happens to have the two molecules that the markets are looking for right now, right? So Mark's in a good position, and that's what makes that company so unique. And the most important thing about it is it's an American company, and we're living in an American Renaissance world, and so he's going to be backed by the right people. So that's what makes that company so unique, and you can see it just in his performance on his stock, right?
Right.
I'm not the only one that thinks this way. So that, and then the other one that I can't say enough about MEI. It's just truly, that's just an incredible deposit. So those are the two.
Terrific. Well, looking forward to next year. Thanks for your time.
Mhm.
I just want to give everybody a teaser and say, do you think SCP will be doing some work in the rare earth field in 2026?
N7, N8, N9, N30. Yeah.
So we should stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah, 100%. And, it's not a big industry. And when when all the blocks fall into place, it'll be done, right? And you'll get some incremental stuff, but we're a ways away from that. The big stuff will get consolidated in the next 2 years, but there'll be, I think this space, I don't know. I just think the demand for these materials is, it's not going away. It's just going to continue to be demand pull driven. So, yeah, no, we're going to be in it until it's not worth it to be. And I think we're in the first inning of a 9-inning game that's probably going to go to a few extra innings, right? So it'll be fun.
Encourage everyone. It's a very difficult space, and this is an area where folks like SCP can be of great help.
We can help. Yeah, no problem.
So we're going to check in with Dave in a few months and see how things are going. Dave, thanks for your time.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget about Justin Chan. He covers the space at the shop, and I think he's probably the best rare earth analyst out there. And so feel free to pick up the phone and call Justin. He's done a great job, and he's actually well thought out in his thinking as well. So he's not a linear thinker, so he's a good conversationalist too. So pick up the phone and call us, no problem.
Justin is the head of research at SCP, and one thing about Justin, you can pick a mine anywhere in the world, whether it's being developed or partially developed, and he has an opinion about whether it's going to make money. So he has an enormous amount of knowledge in that head.
Yes, he does. He does. Great person to work with. Great partner. Anyways, Trey.
Thank you. Nice to speak to you.
We'll see you this afternoon.
We'll see you at the Silver Conference.
All right.
Don't forget to sign up for a free portfolio review with one of our endorsed investment partners at wealthion.com/free. With markets hitting all-time highs, now is a great time to stress test your strategy and be prepared for what comes next. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time.